As a high school graduate struggling with poverty, you're at the bottom of society.
The disdainful look in the eyes of my ex-wife, Emily, as she threw those words at me. The young man was laughing beside her, and he was probably her new fling. From that moment, I lost all affection for her. Who do you think you're mistaking me for?
What?
When I coldly replied, Emily looked surprised and questioned me. Ignoring her, I brushed past them and walked away.
Wait a minute.
Her call didn't reach my heart. All I felt was a sense of annoyance. My name is Tom, and I'm 42 years old. I'm currently unemployed for personal reasons, and I got divorced 3 years ago, so I'm single now. People around me might think I am lonely, but I don't feel that way. I don't regret getting divorced, and thanks to some unique family circumstances, I'm used to living alone, so it doesn't feel special to me. No matter what the circumstances, as long as you find value in your life, it doesn't matter. Even though I'm unemployed, I'm not just staying at home, and I don't think work is simply an activity to earn money. Nowadays, most people work for money, but the most important thing about working is the personal growth that comes from the experience. No matter how much you get paid, if you can't grow through your work, your heart remains poor. The most important thing in this world is definitely not money. Even if people call it an idealistic notion, I firmly believe this. Now, I'm living a fulfilling life, volunteering to grow as a person and maintaining meaningful connections with people, even as a single person. However, unfortunately, I couldn't connect deeply with my wife, Emily, who was supposed to be my life partner. At that time, I was working as a sales representative at a car dealership, and Emily, who was 7 years younger than me, was also working there as an office clerk. We met at work, dated for a year, and then got married, but the marriage quickly fell apart. Shortly after we got married, I found out that Emily was having an affair, and she cheated on me with my boss named Bill at the time. He had been looking out for me since I was a newcomer, and I trusted him deeply as my superior. When I found out, it was a heartbreak that tore me apart. Soon after, I fell ill from the emotional shock and couldn't continue working. I lost Emily, my job, and even my trusted boss Bill, and sank into deep mistrust of people. The emotional wounds were severe, and I often had panic attacks in public, needing hospital visits for a while. With the help of those around me, it took about 3 years to get back to a somewhat normal life. During that time, something remarkable happened to me, but I'll talk about that later. Despite being betrayed so badly in the end, I still don't hate Emily. Nor do I hate Bill. As painful as it was, I married her because I loved her, and even though it hurt to be betrayed, I see it as something that made me stronger today. Maybe it was better than fighting and hurting each other until we broke up. From Emily's perspective, it was probably a youthful mistake. When the affair was discovered and we divorced, she was quite nonchalant about it. She was always quick to warm up and cool down, and likely didn't take marriage or divorce very seriously. Now, I even think her free-spirited nature was her charm. The only saving grace was that she properly married Bill, and they had a child together. Unlike me, who grew up as an orphan, Bill is highly educated, capable at his job, and dependable. Anyone would want to marry him over me. Bill apologized to me when his affair with Emily came to light.
I'll pay as much alimony as you want. Just claim the amount.
It seemed Bill was prepared to be hated by me for life. He was genuinely in love with Emily.
Please don't apologize. I don't need any compensation money. Just make sure you give your future child a happy life.
I told Bill while holding back my pain. I will never forget the complex expression on his face, a mix of joy, sorrow, and relief. After enduring such a tragedy, I managed to get back on my feet and started volunteering. As for the kind of volunteer work, I run a community kitchen for children. We provide free meals to children who can't get proper nutrition due to their families' financial situations. Having been separated from my parents at a young age and moving from one relative's house to another, the hardest part was not being able to eat enough during my growth years. As a guest, I felt uncomfortable asking for a second meal. Initially, I got involved with the community kitchen for children to help children like my past self, but now I work with a broader perspective. Saving children means shaping the future of humanity. Our heartfelt calls have recently encouraged many businesses to join the community kitchen for children, and even high-end restaurants that only a few could normally afford have started lending their spaces. One day, I unexpectedly ran into Emily at a fancy Italian restaurant. I was on my way out of the restaurant after a meeting. Just then, I ran into Emily, but she was coming in with an unfamiliar man. Emily was with this young and rough-looking guy, leaving me speechless. To make matters worse, Emily cheerfully greeted me without any sign of guilt.
Long time no see. What are you doing at such a fancy place? I heard you quit your job, got sick, and are struggling financially.
I could smell alcohol on her breath. Was she drinking in the middle of the day? While I stood there while being stunned, the rough-looking man beside her interjected.
There are people like him who come to high-end places even though they're broke and jobless, you know, Emily?
I did not want to be mistaken for unemployed, so I retorted, I'm not struggling with money. But Emily laughed shrilly and said with glee,
David, this guy here is a high school graduate with no parents. Also, as struggling with poverty, he is at the bottom of society.
The rough-looking guy named David momentarily stiffened but quickly laughed along with Emily.
Yeah, right, Emily.
I felt more absurd than angry. Even though she has Bill, she's fooling around with a young guy like this. And doesn't she have a small child? However, I had no desire to delve into Emily's family situation. Who do you think you're mistaking me for? The restaurant staff was watching us, so I responded to Emily. I didn't want the people from this restaurant, who were going to participate in the community kitchen for children, to think I knew her, so I decided to act like a complete stranger. Emily looked a bit surprised. I don't know who you are, but you must be mistaken for someone else. I brushed past the two of them.
Hey, are you ignoring me?
Emily yelled at me.
Come on, Emily. Just leave him alone.
David's voice soothing her. To me, it was all just noise I didn't want to hear. Any lingering feelings I had for Emily completely vanished from my heart. I have very few memories of my parents, but I do remember one thing my mother used to say often.
Happiness is just an illusion.
It's a phrase devoid of dreams or hope. I only have a vague recollection of my father. I'm not even sure if he was my real father. My relatives didn't tell me much, but I learned that my mother used to work at a nightclub and married a man she met there. However, the marriage didn't go well, and my father eventually left us. For a while, it was just my mother and me living together, but I never felt truly happy. Perhaps it was because my mother herself wasn't happy. Then one night, she went out to work and never came back. The truth was, she ran away with another man, but my relatives lied to me.
Your mother is sick and has to stay in the hospital for a while.
But they never told me the name of the hospital, so I went around town looking for her, asking at each hospital if she was there. Of course, I never found her, and I began to think she might have died. Eventually, I gave up and cut off my feelings for her. I am grateful to the aunt and uncle who took care of me. They didn't have children, so they took good care of me and treated me kindly. But I felt like a burden, so I left home after graduating high school. My aunt and uncle were worried and tried to stop me, but I left and started a live-in newspaper delivery job. I was still under their care, but I always wanted to grow up quickly and live independently. As a child, I didn't want to rely on adults, but now I want other children to have the support of adults. I want to spread the community kitchen for children across America and around the world. After seeing Emily again, I became worried about her and Bill's child. There was no way Emily was taking proper care of her child. Despite feeling like I was meddling, I decided to contact Bill. I was worried he might not answer my call, but he talked to me in the same voice as before. Though I sensed a hint of weariness in his tone, he was probably busy with both work and parenting. I decided to get to the point and started the conversation. "How old is your child now?" Bill hesitated for a moment before replying.
4 years old. But we're not together anymore.
I was at a loss for words,
I broke up with Emily over a year ago.
but Bill spoke with a laugh. According to him, Emily's parents were raising the child. Apparently, Emily wasn't cut out for parenting. She went back to work soon after the child was born. She left the child's care entirely to her parents and didn't even see the child on her days off. Even when child-loving Bill pleaded to live together as a family of 3, Emily refused. Eventually, she asked for a divorce, and Bill just had to provide a child support. The heartbreaking part was that Bill still had feelings for Emily. I hung up the phone with a heavy heart, not knowing what to say. The next moment, I received a call from Emily, nearly dropping my phone in surprise. I hadn't expected her to still have my number. When I cautiously answered, it sounded like she was calling from a noisy place, with loud background noise coming through.
You answered. I got through to Tom. You are still pathetically keeping my number.
Emily said as soon as she heard my voice. That's the same for both of us. I almost said it out loud, but perhaps Emily kept my number not out of lingering feelings, but as a backup plan she might need me someday. Emily spoke in a drunken tone.
The manager of that Italian restaurant we met at the other day told me you're doing volunteer work. Is this right?
Yes, that's right.
And I heard you're making substantial donations to your volunteer group. The manager praised you as a generous person. How can a poor guy like you afford that?
Laughter erupted in the background of the call.
Or did you get that money illegally and use it for volunteer work to feel superior? What's so fun about a pathetic person trying to help other pathetic people?
You're the one making people pathetic. I suppressed my rising anger. Anger wouldn't solve anything. For some reason, I inherited a significant amount of money, so I wanted to use it for the betterment of society, and I'm running a community kitchen for children who can't get home-cooked meals. You should bring your child sometime, Emily. I said that and hung up the phone. I heard about my father's inheritance last year. Since I didn't have parents, I thought there was no way I'd receive any inheritance. However, even though I didn't remember him, my father did indeed exist. Moreover, he was apparently quite wealthy, and I was to inherit about $20 million, including life insurance. I was told this would be $20 million, but I just didn't get it as a common person. It was because I didn't know about my father at all. But if it was true, I had to accept it. And with that amount of money, I thought I could help many children, so I started my volunteer work. Although my distrust of people had eased, I still didn't have the courage to marry again, so I would never have children of my own. That's why I believed I could treat all children equally. It would be the same even if it was Emily's child. A few days after our phone call, Emily brought her child to the community kitchen for children that was held at the Italian restaurant. He was a boy, not yet in elementary school, with a beautiful face that resembled Emily's. Though he looked like Emily, his demeanor reminded me of Bill. Strangely enough, thanks to Emily not raising him, he was a polite boy who greeted others properly. Emily's attitude changed drastically when she found out I had inherited money.
I'm sorry for saying such rude things the other day. I've actually always cared about you.
I knew that wasn't true, but I honestly told her that I still liked her even after we broke up. I couldn't lie about my feelings.
Then maybe we can start over?
My words made her eyes light up. Fine lines had appeared around her eyes after she turned 35. But I saw you with David, and I just stopped caring. I still liked you when you were still married to Bill. Emily raised her voice.
Don't pretend like you are good. You must be lonely.
Everyone eating around us turned to look at us. I apologized to the surprised patrons and took her outside. You're a mother. How can you act like this in front of your child? I couldn't help but scold her. Emily casually replied,
You can't forgive a woman like your mother who abandoned you, right? You act all righteous, but you're just holding a grudge from the past.
Her words made me angry, but I had to admit she was right. Maybe I was projecting my mother onto Emily. I still remembered how I felt when my mother abandoned me. It was sad, painful, and frustrating. That's why I wanted to someday marry someone I loved and build a warm family. But the person I fell in love with was Emily, who resembled my mother. I really did love you, but I've woken up. I'll never get back together with you. However, I still want your child to come to the community kitchen for children. Emily snorted and went back inside. My mother's words, "Happiness is just an illusion," resurfaced vividly in my mind like a fresh wound, but I quickly shook them off. Happiness is not an illusion. If you can find value in life, you should be able to feel happy as something tangible. I want to convey this to children from difficult family environments through meals. The last time I saw Emily was at that restaurant. She suddenly disappeared after that incident. It seems she ran away with David. Apparently, David wasn't a decent person and stole money from the restaurant before fleeing. Because of my connection to Emily, I was asked about her, but I had nothing to share. Later, only David was caught, but months passed without any news of Emily. According to David, they had a falling out while fleeing, and Emily got out of the car in the mountains. Based on his testimony, a search was conducted, and Emily was found at the bottom of a valley in a drastically changed state. It seemed she likely slipped and fell off a cliff. Although Emily's fate pained me, I was more concerned about the child she left behind. The child would lose both parents, just like I did. However, my worries were unfounded, as Bill ended up taking in the child. When I told him about my work with the community kitchen for children, he came along with his child. This allowed me to talk to Bill for the first time in a while. I realized that although he had helped me a lot at work, we had never talked about our personal histories. It turned out Bill had also gone through the painful experience of his parents divorcing when he was young.
But in the end, it turned out like this. And I feel like such a pathetic father.
That's not true at all. I think you're a great dad, Bill. You could see it in your child's face. He looked like he really loves you. Bill gave a shy smile.
From now on, I'm dedicating my life to my son.
A person who finds value in their life is strong. I'm sure he will raise his son wonderfully. And I can't help but hope that his son will someday build a happy family. The community kitchen for children rapidly gained nationwide recognition. As donors emerged, I established a foundation. My call reached many people, and the number of volunteers increased. The children who grew up with the community kitchen for children became adults. Watching this happen made me happier than anything else. I can only thank my parents for bringing me into this world to find this happiness. However, life is finite. In fact, it's the very finiteness that gives it value. I now sincerely hope that this activity will be carried on by kind-hearted people even after I'm gone.